Thank you for tuning in to the Practical Preservation Podcast. Please take a moment to visit our website, practicalpreservationservices.com, for additional information and tips to help you restore your historical home. If you've not done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, and also like us on Facebook. Welcome to the Practical Preservation Podcast, hosted by Danielle and Jonathan Kepperling. Kepperling Preservation Services is a family-owned business based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, dedicated to the preservation of our built architectural history for today's use as well as future generations. Our weekly podcast provides you with expert advice specific to the unique needs of renovating a historic home, educating by sharing our From the Trenches preservation knowledge and our guests' expertise, balancing modern needs while maintaining the historical significance, character, and beauty of your period home.
Today on the Practical Preservation Podcast, we have Dan Godfrey with us from RLPS Architects. Dan, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Danielle.
So tell me about your background.
So I am an architect and partner at RLPS Architects. I have been with the company for 21 years. Got my technical degree at Harrisburg Area Community College and commuted to Drexel University for my Bachelor's of Architecture.
Oh, that's. I was just thinking. I wonder if we were at Hack at the same time. We might have been. I was in the culinary program though.
Okay.
So the winding way that got me here, it probably was longer than 20 years ago though. Now that I'm thinking about it, if I'm being honest about the number of years that have passed.
That's okay. I think our paths may have crossed.
Yes. So tell me about RLPS Architects and the types of projects and services that you offer.
Sure. RLPS Architects was founded, our founding partners came into the practice about 60 years ago. The bulk of our work has been in retirement communities, and we do that work nationally. Probably 85% of the work that we do is in seniors. We're also in the K through 12 market and the higher education market, while we also like to participate in local select projects like the Wilbur. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the reason that I had asked you to join us on the podcast was the former Wilbur Chocolate Factory. I had seen the project in the paper, so it's a really interesting example of an adaptive reuse. Can you tell me about that project and what your role was?
Absolutely. It was a very interesting set of circumstances that brought us to the project. One of our founding partners, Greg Scott, along with Jonathan Hollinger from Pleasant View Retirement Community, were together when they found out that the old Wilbur Chocolate Factory was going to be up for sale and was available. So they came in touch with Oak Tree Development Group and decided that, with the seniors component, which is our background, they'd like to develop the site into a multi-use site, which was exactly what we've been looking to do because we really believe that many of the retirement communities we work with want a nice walkable urban satellite campus. So Jonathan Hollinger had interest in doing that. Greg Scott had the vision to connect the different parties, and RLPS came into play and really became the architect of record for the entire complex. We helped Oak Tree develop that into 74 hotel rooms, 26 condos, a market area that hosts half a dozen different booths, on-site restaurant, fitness, meeting spaces, parking structure, and all the amenities that would support those programs. So the building has been there since the turn of the century, around 1902, the original building. We did a lot of work there. It ultimately culminated in 140 square foot of project. That component was $24 million worth of construction, and we helped manage and put those pieces together.
That's a huge complex. I don't think ever, because I had been at when it was the chocolate factory, I had been there probably when I was in middle school or something. But I don't think I realized how big that building was and the the square footage that is there. So when I was looking at the website, I think I was understanding that they're like the apartments or condos that they're like selling individually.
That's right. It was
Okay.
20 condos, so 26 different condo owners basically built custom homes right there in the tenant spaces made available to them.
And then are they only for like retirement age, or are they like a multi?
Actually, that component is basically multifamily house. The seniors component is going to be the lofts at Lititz Springs, which you could learn more about on Pleasant View's website. Okay. That is actually an attached component that we're building up on the hill. So as it all came to be, Oak Tree Development Group ultimately used the historic component for the hotel and the condos, and then other parts of the sites got allocated to the seniors component.
Oh, that's really, and I do think that there is, especially with the generation that is retiring now, they don't want to just be sequestered off. They want to be in walkable town. So I think that's really, really a great use of the building and the trends that are there.
Absolutely. And really Lititz is listed in the top 5 small towns in America nearly every year. So it was a perfect opportunity. They have a lot of amenities, places to eat, all within walking distance. So it was really a great opportunity to fulfill that vision.
Yes. So do you see any challenges, or did you experience any challenges on this project in adaptive reuse, or if somebody's looking to, change the building's usage?
Absolutely. So, adaptive reuse, especially one of this scale, is not for the faint of heart. We started off the project by looking at all the pieces that we wanted to keep and the extraneous pieces that have been added since 1902 that were not going to be of use to us. So we ultimately, with about 6 buildings on site, we pared it down to the original 3 buildings that were the older buildings and had the most historic significance, and also had the best structure. A lot of very thick brick exterior walls and heavy timber construction that really conducive to a contemporary factory type reuse. So, the challenges, are really going to be common to most adaptive reuse projects, in that in 1902, they weren't thinking about the building codes that we're using now.
Right.
So that there are an awful lot of things about the building that had to be reinforced or changed or modified to meet today's code and certainly to adapt to the new use.
Well, and I'm thinking too, even like putting mechanicals and things. And now if it looks more warehousey, you can kind of get away with leaving that exposed. But that, those are some of those challenges that because the things that you need in a modern building are not the same as what, would have been 100 years ago or 120 years ago.
Absolutely. The phrase "they don't build them like they used to" is more true than most people realize.
Right.
And for positive and for negative aspects. For the positive, the brick and the masonry, the quality of the heavy timber, those types of things would be cost prohibitive in today's world to do a project like this. But luckily for us, to reuse a building that already had all of that was a huge opportunity. And really, those components were the character that people were looking for when it came time to solicit tenants.
Well, and I would, it's what makes it special, because it's not just a cookie cutter. Everyone's the same. Everyone's a little bit different then. And I was noticing that because yesterday when I was doing my research, I don't know if it was in one of the newspaper articles or if it was on your website, where it talked about like each apartment is a different, they've all been pretty much customized.
Yeah, and buildings like this, every time you turn the corner, you run into a different condition.
Right.
Really a challenge to overcome when you're dealing with design and construction, but it's also what gives it its flavor and the things that are attractive to people.
So, do you see any challenges or trends in preservation as you, get it, or as you do your work, or what? I'm not sure. If it mostly adaptive reuse that you handle?
Well, I would say, lots of people are recognizing and seeing the value in these old buildings, and certainly recognizing the importance to the community. In this case, there's a lot of Moravian heritage in the town of Lititz. So tying that to an old historic building that has always been part of the fabric of the town was super important.
Yeah.
And certainly the opportunity to take something that was part of the history and make it part of the future of the town. I think that that's probably where the greatest success was realized with this project. The experience you get visiting Lititz, I don't think people will go to Lititz and see the Wilbur and the mixed use development there and recognize that it's part of the town, and it will feel like it's always been there, which parts of it have.
Right.
So the new mixed use fits right in with the small boutique type shopping that's available in Lititz. So the use and the history all kind of work together to make this a successful project.
Yeah. And I think too I see that as a trend too, especially in towns and cities, that people are wanting to live in a walkable area. And we had kind of for 50 years or so gone out into the suburbs and wanted to be able to drive everywhere, and that trend, and I think that's part of what makes Lititz charm, because you can pretty much walk everywhere in town.
And I think that the trend and the challenge is that the folks recognize the historic value and they don't want you taking something away.
That's
so the
conversation
has to be about what you're bringing to the future and how you're reusing and adapting something that's important to the town and to the history of the town to a new use.
Yeah, and I can see that too, because there's some people that they don't want anything to change. So you have that struggle where I would rather see a building reused that's still being, a large portion of it being preserved rather than torn down, than to demand no change happen at all. But
I think that's where you have to get with the town and with the community, to a place where they recognize the value.
Was that a challenge with this project, or is that just in general?
Well, I think ultimately they recognized that it was a bit of a blighted property. There were a lot about it that was going to sit vacant, that wasn't doing anything for the town to enhance the community or the economy. So, something needed to happen. And certainly the last thing we wanted to do was to tear down an important part of the history of Lititz. So, showing that we were not only going to keep some of those historic pieces that were important to the town, but that we were going to enhance them and bring new program and new amenities to the town. It was pretty well received. You always have people who just don't like change.
Right.
Explain that the alternative is to lose a piece of their history or to have a blighted property sitting there. People start to warm to the idea of a mixed-use development.
Yeah, I could see that. And then there's just, the 5% of people you're never going to make happy. and they're probably not your stakeholders anyway, really.
I'd be willing to bet that some of the people that were against this project are sitting in the coffee shop enjoying a coffee right now.
Probably. So is there anything else that you want to share about the project, or about, some of the some of the different aspects of how it came together, or some of the interesting features, or anything like that?
I would just reiterate that, it was a great opportunity for us to bring some of our expertise to the table. Early planning and conversations at every level are what make projects like this happen and make them successful. So you can't do too much groundwork. You can't do too much research. You can't do too much preparation on a project like this. So knowing the history, knowing the building, and knowing what the town's reaction to your project is going to be going in prepares you for success.
I agree with that. So and I will make sure on our website, because we post these on the podcast recordings get hosted on our website. So when I do that, I will make sure that we link to the project page, so everybody that's listening can go on and look at all the pictures and everything from your site. But how else can someone contact your firm?
That's really the best way. So our website, www.rlps.com, is a good way to find out more about our company and connect with us. We're also on social media, so Facebook and Twitter are good places to connect with RLPS. Feel free to follow us. Feel free to comment on our posts.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Practical Preservation Podcast. The resources discussed during this episode are on our website at practicalpreservationservices.com/podcast. If you received value from this episode and know someone else that will get value from it as well, please share it with them. Join us next week for another episode of the Practical Preservation Podcast. For more information on restoring your historic home, visit practicalpreservationservices.com.